viewers, I'm Swati Joshi and you're watching India Upfront. Earlier, Times Now exposed how social media was weaponized to carry out the brutal murder of Kanhaiya Lal in Udaipur. Today, Times Now will show you concrete proof, traps and social media trends to show a sharp spike in anti-Hindu hate speeches and codes online. Your channel has accessed the Rutgers University report which talks about a sharp rise in anti-Hindu disinformation across social media and messaging platforms. This spike was first noticed in November last year and now again since June 2022. It reveals that memes and viral photos are being made to trend, especially in extremist Islamist networks. Most of the trolls, after analysis of 1 million tweets, are originating in Pakistan. Let's first show you some of these memes which speak of Hindu killing, death squads and threaten to form an Islamic state in India. Take a look at the first one where terrorists are being glorified. This meme valorizes the attackers, the 2611 attackers, and Hindus have been mocked. They've been shown crying as an impact of what the terrorists have done to them. In another meme on your screen, it shows anti-Hindu squad killing Hindus. There are a lot more. In another meme that we've accessed, it in fact threatens of the Islamic State across India. And mind you, this report talks about how the Islamic State, how the ISIS in fact is expanding Hindu-phobic attacks and propaganda. Let's move on. Let's show you another meme which depicts the swastik smeared with blood. In fact, anti-Hindutva protests have been circulated as well. Those photographs have been circulated to provoke sentiments, to in fact only add on to the anti-Hindu hate which is trending online these days. And take a look at this one, in which it threatens that when Islam gains control of India, and then Hindus on the other hand in the meme have been shown to be begging for mercy. Now the Rutgers report shows how the genesis of anti-Hindu trolls seem to be in Pakistan. Now, what are the takeaways as far as the graph on your screen is concerned? Highest anti-Hindu tweets originated in Pakistan. It shows you how there's a plot to in fact create a divide between communities by contributing in the anti-Hindu hate. Lahore and Karachi in fact are the hubs of these Twitter trolls. Covert influence with anti-Hindu disinformation. The report talks about how these trolls are based out of Lahore and Karachi. How this entire conspiracy is being hatched in Pakistan. So Pakistan has a big role to play. Now let's show you how words like Hindu and Pajit, which is a slur for Hindus, are being made to trend. The first graph on your screen shows you that there's a spike in anti-Hindu slur on the 4chan website, which by the way has a reach of 7 million subscribers. That's massive. Those many people are receiving this content. It terms Hindu and Pajit, which again is a slur for Hindus. 14,000 comments have been used. Pajit is a term which is common in all those tweets, in all those 14,000 comments that have been used in 2021. Let's move on now to graph number 2. Spike in anti-Hindu slurs on Telegram as well. On 2021, and Telegram has an active 500 million users. Terms like Hindu and Pajit have been used constantly in several of the comments. 12,000 slurs were using the term Hindu in November 2021. Moving on to graph number 3. A spike was witnessed in anti-Hindu slurs on Twitter as well. This very year, in June 2022, the term Pajit spiked in end of 2020. Close to 300 tweets have been using the term which is used as a slur for Hindus, which is Pajit, in 2022 as well. Remember, India has repeatedly spoken about Hinduphobia. It has red flagged Hinduphobia at the international platforms as well. India's ambassador to the United Nations has in the past urged the world body to recognize Hinduphobia along with religious hatred against Buddhism and Sikhism in the global fight against terrorism. Let's first listen to that.
Phobias, hatred or bias against other major religions of the world need to be fully recognized. The emergence of contemporary forms of religious phobia, especially anti-Hindu, anti-Buddhist, and anti-Sikh phobias, is a matter of serious concern and needs the attention of the UN and all member states. It is only then can we bring greater balance into our discussion on such topics.
So can Hinduphobia be denied? That's the big question that we are debating tonight. Let's open this up and go across to our guests. We have Sushil Pandit, an activist, Karan Verma, author and political analyst, Gokul Chandran, also a political analyst on the panel, Professor Atiq Ur Rehman, political analyst. We have Mr. Vikraman, spokesperson of the VCK, joining us as well, and we are also waiting for Amit Malviya, national spokesperson of the BJP, to join us soon. Let me open this up and let me in fact first go across to Professor Atiq Ur Rehman, and I'm just reading from the report. It says, despite violent and genocidal implications of Hinduphobia, it has largely been understudied, dismissed or even denied in the public sphere. Why do you think is that the case? Why is it that the lobby, that some individuals continue to deny Hinduphobia as if it never existed?
Swati, I do not think it will be a wise decision to deny that Hinduphobia do exist. Along with it, how can we forget that the same arguments related to Muslim phobia was argued by none other than the British Parliament, wherein our foreign minister, denied it, quoting the Abrahamic religions and, hate against Abrahamic religions and this and that. He tried to cover it up. Besides it, post lynching of the Muslims by the Gaurakshaks, when a petitioner went to the Supreme Court, Swati, the same arguments he argued in the Supreme Court, that hate is begetting hate if this is not nipped in the bud, and this can be nipped in the bud easily if there is a law on lynching, which the Government of India denied having one. In fact, the Government of India went on to say that who is the Supreme Court to tell the government what law should be made by the executive. So, we have to call a spade, Swati. Hate begets hate. If we are, trying to cover up, skirt the issues, things will go wild in this era of social media. And, vested interest, mainly across the borders, do take advantage of such elements.
You're making very important points. So let me ask you a follow-up question. So do you think in wake of incidents that have taken place in this country, in wake of now this latest report, a US dossier confirming Hinduphobia, should individuals shun double standards when it comes to religiophobia and accept that Hinduphobia exists? Mr. Atiq Ur Rehman.
Swati, I, being a researcher on Islamic studies, can only assure you that as far as the religion of Islam and Muslims in India are concerned, a large amount of them do go by the dictate of the Quran, which says that do not revile the other gods, lest they revile your gods in return in their ignorance. So it's a clear-cut phenomena that if you are trying to sabotage some sort of religiosity and, marking other religions in a defamatory manner, it will get a backlash. We need the Government of India, the state agencies, to have a very harsher law. And why not to start with an anti-lynching law?
Amit Malviya is with us on the broadcast. Amit Malviya, Atiq Ur Rehman says that nobody can deny Hinduphobia exists. He is saying that Islamophobia, although, has been rejected.
Look, Swati, I think that has come from university is the starting point of admitting that there is something called Hinduphobia. For all these years, it was pushed under the carpet, and you had systematically undermining of Hindu faith and adherence of the faith. So it's a good, welcome step so that the world knows that there is a phenomena called Hinduphobia. Now, what drives this Hinduphobia, assuming that Hindus are largely peaceful, they are not driven by a book or diktat of the clergy or the Maulanas, as is the case with other faiths. So what is it that drives this Hinduphobia? It is perhaps the expanse of the faith and its ability to assimilate a wide range of conflicting ideas in its philosophy is what drives people towards Hinduphobia, who cannot believe that there is a civilization out here that has thrived for millennia purely on the strength of its idea, on the strength of its resilience, on the strength of its belief that God resides in living beings and non-living beings, and that it has an element of respect for every faith.
Amit Malviya, Atiq Ur Rehman is not, he is not denying that Hinduphobia exists. He in fact is alleging or accusing that when it comes to the Government of India, there's double standards in accepting Islamophobia. How do you respond to that particular charge?
I don't think there is double standards by the Government of India. There are legislations in this country which can address the issue of religious animosity, if it exists, if people are using religion to drive their political agenda. But we have to address the core of the issue. The core is not the legislation. The core is the fundamental ideology that drives phobia, whether it is about Hindus or it is about Muslims. The fact is, I was just hearing Atiq Ur Rehman say that they are driven by the writings or preachings in Quran and perhaps the diktats that come by way of fatwa subsequently by Maulanas who interpret what is written in the Quran for the adherents. That puts people in conflict with the other faiths, other communities, and that is the core of the problem. You cannot solve that by legislation, because the legislation effectively says that we should have secular education, for example, and we saw just yesterday that in Jamtara, Jharkhand, where Muslims are today 75%, they want holidays on Friday. So there is something very compelling that is driving the community to fall in line with the religious diktat. Now, that evolution has to happen. There are people within the community who have to take the community forward, and unfortunately, barring a few exceptions, those voices are not heard of. So it is not about equating Hinduphobia with Islamophobia. The reality is that they are fundamentally different, and there are reasons why Islamophobia exists and why Hinduphobia is a construct of the political nature. All
right. Amit Malviya, stay on with us. I want to bring in Sushil Pandit, because I'm sure the first thought in your mind, Sushil Pandit, is that there's nothing new when it comes to Hinduphobia. It has already existed. And the report also says, Sushil Pandit, in these online communities are adapting a pre-existing, understudied playbook of Hinduphobic tropes to a new sphere of communication. What it talks about is the impact that the social media is creating.
Yes, Swati, but let me rephrase this entire thing. In my opinion, you need not have gone through so many slur words or tweets or posts or even handles to look at a trend and their repeated posts. You only have to see on ground what has happened. And let me give you two very clear examples. In the last 70 years, look at what has happened to Hindus and other non-Muslims in Pakistan. They have all but disappeared. What do you attribute this to? And this is under an Islamic order. Pakistan is a self-declared Islamic state. And this is what it does to its minorities, especially Hindus. Now look at India, which is a democratic secular order. Show me one Hindu-dominated region where Muslim number has come down. Even one exception among all the states and provinces. And I'll give you an example of a Muslim-dominated province in India from where Hindus have been all but wiped out. A genocide committed. Now this is a ground reality. We Kashmiri Hindus were violently expelled from Kashmir 32 years ago, the only Muslim majority region in this country. Now let me come to the crux of the issue. What you call Hinduphobia is actually Hindu hate. There is nothing that you could fear from Hindus. Phobia is about irrational fear. I don't think we indulge in anything which can evoke fear in the others. Whereas there is a huge tradition, decades of experience, lived experience, centuries of lived experience, where Hindus have been completely eliminated, exterminated from the regions where they lived, which are now completely Islamic societies. And finally, to the crux of what I am saying, whenever you pick up Hindu hate as a phenomenon, you will find apologists coming out with a false moral equivalence in order to balance it out by invoking Islamophobia. There is absolutely no ground for that. This is hypocrisy, and this is an attempt to deny a genocide.
Gokul Chandran, Sushil Pandit says that we don't need these US dossiers, we don't need a certificate from the world, we only need to look at our past and our neighbors where Hindus are being persecuted for their religion. Shouldn't the world today wake up and take note of the existence of Hinduphobia then? Why is it being denied by many in this country as well?
Yeah. Good evening, Swati. I'll get into it. See, any hate speech is against the dignity of a community and it leads to hate crimes. And this Hinduphobia, it do exist, and we can see that in the recent times. So I want to go behind how this Hinduphobia has arisen. See, Islam is a international religion. It is there in many of the regions, many of the countries. And as you correctly pointed out in that report, it says this Hinduphobia, hate tweets and hate comments are coming from Islamic nations. So what's happening when you have a chief minister from BJP dog whistling Muslims, when you have BJP lawmakers speaking against Muslims and the religion and the Muslim people, and when you have BJP leaders, someone like Narasimhan Saraswati speaking, calling for genocide of Muslims and talking ill about Islam, that is the backlash you need to expect from such countries. And unfortunately, and very unfortunately, the backlash is coming on innocent Hindus. It is not only stopping with the Hindutvavadis, the RSS, BJP and its sister
I think Amit Malviya should respond to that. But then Mr. Gokul Chandran, how will you counter what Sushil Pandit said? How will you counter what he said about the genocide of Kashmiri Hindus? What was happening back then?
See, genocide of Kashmiri Hindus happened under whose regime? Whose regime? Again, a Hindutva government was there, supported, some Hindutva supported government was there. Under their watch, the Kashmiri Pandit massacre took place. And what, even after coming to power, I want to ask Sushil Pandit, it is 8 years since Modi came to power. What did Modi do for those Kashmiri Pandits? Could he send back at least one Kashmiri Pandit back to Kashmir? And it is a shame that such people are talking about
Sushil Pandit, counter coming in from Sushil Pandit.
Pandits and their massacres. And
Mr. Gokul Chandran's name sounds like that of a Hindu. Before he starts blaming this government or that, I want to know who committed that genocide. Whether it happened under this government or that, who committed that genocide? Will you please point out what were the factors?
The genocide was committed by another Indian.
Did something about it or not?
Okay,
whether
the genocide
is doing something about it today or not is a separate issue. Who committed that genocide?
The genocide committed by Indians on other Indians. It is the Indians versus Indians. There is no foreign hand here. There is no foreign presence here. It is the Kashmiri people who fought amongst themselves, and the Kashmiri Pandits were at the receiving end.
Those Indians. Why are you so hypocritical?
What stops? What stops?
Gokul Chandran, were they driven out of the valley because they were Indians? Or were they driven out of the valley because they were Kashmiri Hindus? Was that not Hinduphobia?
See, that's what I'm telling. They were driven out of the valley because they were Kashmiri Hindus, and there is no doubt about that.
Yes, so religion.
I totally stand with that.
Yes, so religion comes. So the religious angle comes in. So the religious angle comes in. You are
Swati,
saying...
I don't understand.
You are saying...
I don't understand.
No, Gokul Chandran, you have to call a spade a spade. And I want to bring in Amit
Swati,
Malhi
I don't
also
understand.
because you are raising a very important point. And ever since, according to Gokul Chandran, Amit Malviya, the BJP has come to power, and the stand taken by your chief ministers, your netas have only contributed to the backlash that we are witnessing in form of Hinduphobia today. Respond.
Well, first of all, Swati, the word should not be Hinduphobia. The word should be Hindu-misia. It is hatred for Hindus and Hinduism. That is what we should be discussing. And people like Gokul Chandran are part of the problem. To blame one dispensation or the other, which is also factually incorrect. And he obviously did not answer the very important question that Sushil Pandit asked him. Who were the people who went up against the Kashmiri Hindus? What was their ultimate agenda? It was Nizam-e-Mustafa to establish an Islamic state in the valley. And the Kashmiri Hindus had to suffer the brunt of it because of their faith. And that killing continues even till date. So unless we look the problem in the eye, it's not going to disappear. We should also not forget the fact that India's partition happened on religious lines, because the Muslims believe that they do not want to live under a Hindu dispensation, which India is. It's a Hindu majority country. It may not be a Hindu majoritarian country, but it's a Hindu majority country, and that is the reality. Today, Pakistan and Bangladesh were created because Muslims wanted a separate country which would be run by Islamic principles. Now, those who have stayed back and chose India as their motherland, including people like Gokul Chandran, because the communists, the ones that went to Pakistan, either ceased being communists or weren't around there to talk about communism a few years later. But the truth is that they continue to be here and divide the country, drive wedge in communities, and in fact use Muslims as cannon fodder for their political agenda.
You know, whether you say Islamophobia, whether you say Hinduphobia, if it is hurting the social fabric, this needs a more serious approach. Vikraman R.
Swati,
I'll come to you. Other guests haven't even spoken, sir. I want to take reactions from Mr. Vikraman and Karan Verma. First to Mr. Vikraman. Mr. Vikraman, isn't there a need for a more serious approach instead of, drawing parallels when one speaks about Hinduphobia, the other argument is about Islamophobia? Because according to the report, terrorist organizations like the ISIS are expanding their anti-Hindu propaganda and Hinduphobic attacks. It ultimately impacts not just one community, but the entire country.
Have we heard any such reports before when it was Congress government? No. Did ISIS target Hindus just because they are Hindus? No. Now the reports are coming because the country is ruled by Hindu fanatics, the Hindutva fanatics. The BJP, the very same person, Amit Malviya, who is the BJP's IT cell head, he has been spreading rumors like, the coronavirus has been spreaded by the Muslims. In 2020, when the pandemic was happening, it was pinned on Muslims, our dear brothers and sisters, our own brothers and sisters. Our country Muslims have been targeted because they have been the minorities. So that did not go well with the Arab world, in the Islamic countries and all. So the government had to apologize, the government had to explain to the OIC countries that the disease does not see race, religion.
Why aren't anti-BJP hashtags being used?
The Prime Minister had to explain.
Amit Malviya surely should respond to your allegations, and he should surely provide you an explanation. But why aren't anti-BJP hashtags being used?
Let me finish it. Yes. No, BJP has been responsible for this turmoil in this country. Who are the benefiters of this? Who are the benefiters of this polarization? Obviously them, right? They need this country to be divided on the lines of religion. If the religion divide is not working in Tamil Nadu, they will, take caste. If the caste is not working, they will come to subcaste. their ultimate motive is to divide and rule.
So tell me something. So tell me something. If the BJP is responsible,
should not be together.
If the BJP is responsible, how do you explain this particular meme? The swastika with the trishul dripping, blood dripping from it. Another meme where the 2611 attackers are being glorified, and individuals with saffron tilak on their foreheads are shown crying, begging for mercy. How do you explain these memes? If BJP is responsible, and yes, surely BJP should answer. If BJP is responsible, what explains these memes? And is this anti-Hindu or anti-BJP? The memes I'm talking about.
Actually, the swastika does not represent any Hindus. In Tamil Nadu, we don't use swastika. Swastika represents or symbolizes Aryan race. In India, Brahmins and other upper caste Hindus, they associate themselves with
What about the
Aryan
trishul?
race.
What about the trishul?
Swastika.
What about the trishul?
We do not use swastika.
What about blood dripping from the
And
trishul?
these are the reactions from the. These are the reactions. Yes, I'm telling you. I'm coming to that point. These are the reactions from the radical elements.
Radical elements reacting
across
to
the globe,
radical
like
elements reacting to the 2611 attack and glorifying the attackers.
Are reacting to the
and glorifying the attackers of 2611
to attack India. So the BJP is compromising on the national
first tell me, do you view the 2611 attacks? Do you view the 2611 attacks as a terror attack on this country, or do you view this as an attack on the Hindus?
That is a terror attack on this country.
Absolutely.
There is no doubt about it.
Absolutely.
I'm talking about the current
Absolutely.
situation.
It's a terror attack.
It's
a terror attack, but a meme is being used to glorify the 2611 attackers.
External affairs
But a meme is being used in this entire anti-Hindu campaign, sir, to glorify those 2611 attackers, and the victims are shown to be Hindus with saffron tilaks and saffron attires, crying, mocking the Hindus.
No.
It was a terror attack. Why is this meme being used?
I have seen that meme. Madam, I have seen that meme. That meme clearly says Hindutva and not Hindus.
Was that an attack? Was that an attack? Was that a terror attack?
And I am not scared to be in this country.
Was that a terror attack, sir?
It is an attack on Hindutva. 2611
was that an attack on Hindutva?
was a terror attack. But
was
you
that
are
an attack
talking
on
about
Hindutva
the meme.
or on the people of this country?
2611 was an attack on the people of this country.
So then there can be no justification to the meme.
Situation which you are discussing.
Then there can be no justification to the meme. In fact, one should be condemning the fact that an incident like that, an incident of a terror attack is being used to vitiate the atmosphere and further the divide. Karan Verma.
Look,
can I answer for that?
Hinduphobia or Hindu hatred, whatever you like to call it. No, can I speak now? I've been patiently waiting for my turn, so let me please answer. Hinduphobia has been real from a long time, Swati. And do you know what is responsible for it? Radicalization and the vote bank politics. Who coined the word Hindu terror? It was the Home Minister of this country, Sushil Shinde, who attached religion with terror. It was RVS Money who exposed him. In the book, the inside account of the Home Ministry. And 2611, you just mentioned about 2611. Rakesh Maria today tells us that the entire ploy was to show that Ajmal Kasab is a Hindu. When lakhs of Kashmiri Pandits are driven from their home and Roots in Kashmir files a petition, and the Supreme Court, with all due respect, says that nothing fruitful will come out of it because 32 years have passed, then you know there is an institutional effort to debase and dehumanize Hindus. This is what has resulted in Hinduphobia today. Hindus as a community have been the most tolerant community. They are the ethos of this country when they say Ekam Sat Vipraha Bahuda Vadanti. Truth is one. Sages call it by different names. But alas, the politics of appeasement. Today, Hindus are ready to reclaim their civilization, which is why we see a greater backlash on social media. Hindus today, for the first time, have raised their head and said enough. They've started questioning, why do we have the Places of Worship Act, which doesn't let us even correct the historical injustices. They've started asking why justice has not been served to our Kashmiri Pandits.
So today there is a greater backlash, but we must understand that the night is darkest before dawn, and I believe that Hindus are awakening up. They might face backlash, but this is the start of an era where we'll have true secularism, where there is respect for all.
Okay, I want to bring in Amit Malviya now. Amit Malviya, since this issue has been raised by Atiq Ur Rehman and Mr. Vikraman as well, Mr. Vikraman says, why were there no such reports when the Congress was in power? And I want to ask a follow-up question. But we've had, US State Department in its annual report alleged that in India in 2021, attack on members of the minority communities have occurred throughout the year. And of course, it is in your regime, and the NYU Stern Center for Business and Human Rights highlighting the targeting of Muslims by backers of the ruling BJP. So how do you respond to that, those findings?
Look, Swati, before the BJP came into power, they had a government at the center and a few other states which was complicit in this Islamism that we are seeing now by way of backlash, as they call it. If you have a dispensation that is in sync with what you're doing, why would you ever have a problem? It is only after the BJP came to power on the back of a popular mandate, and two of them, that they started having problems, and their plans and their designs on India did not seem to succeed. And therefore, there is an attempt to try and malign the country. The reports that you're quoting of whether New York Times or any other publication, we know what their position on India is. They are viscerally anti-India. And in fact, they would like to have a dispensation that's a weak one so that they can have their writ run large in this country. The BJP is the hurdle. As far as Vikraman is concerned, I can make out from his arguments that he believes in a Dravidian ideology. He's the only one on this program who accused the BJP of being casteist, and in the same breath, he said that the Aryan invasion theory is racist and it's Brahminical and it's upper caste. When the fact is that the Aryan invasion theory has been debunked, that it was false, it was created by communist historians to peddle an agenda. Yet, people like Vikraman, who I can bet is a Dravidian by ideology and his politics, although he may masquerade as a political analyst, he has brought in the caste element. The truth is that people will have a problem with this dispensation because this dispensation is about putting India first. We will not compromise. We will not take certificates from international agencies and publications on how we run the affairs of our country. We know how America runs. We know the racial problems there. We know the problems in China. We know problems in other countries who pontificate routinely. But, Swati, I want to make one larger point here. Is it only against the Hindus? Why were the Yezdis targeted, for example? Not just Hindus. Hindus happen to be a dominant, all-prevalent, powerful, non-Abrahamic social denomination. And therefore, we are an easy target. But look at Yezdis. They have been targeted. They have been exterminated. Their women raped, taken as sex slaves, people beheaded. So there is a larger problem here. And unless we address the issue on hand and the problem that lies at the core of the ideological belief that drives this violence and mindless bloodshed, we are going to be beating around the bush.
Okay, quick counters. First Atiq Ur Rehman, then Mr. Sushil Pandit, and then Mr. Chandran.
Swati, I think what I gather from the entire argument on this debate is, firstly, recognizing Pakistan to be an Islamic state is at the root of this problem. Once you recognize Pakistan as an Islamic state, not a bigoted theocracy, the problem are half solved. I do not recognize the RSS and the Hindutva to be Hindu people, to be, gathered by the Hindu ideology. Hindu ideology is a peace-loving ideology, not the Hindutva ideology of the RSS and the BJP. Why do you recognize Pakistan to be an Islamic state? It's a bigoted theocracy, as the BJP wants to have in India, a bigoted Hindutva, Hindu Rashtra.
Sushil Pandit.
I'm amused by Mr. Atiq Ur Rehman's sophistry. If Pakistan is a bigoted theocracy, what theocracy are they bigoted with? Which theology are they bigoted with? Why won't you name that theology, please? Let me know which book, which faith does that
It's not
theocracy
Islamic,
flow
sir.
from?
It's not
Be that as it
Islamic.
may.
It's not
just
Quranic,
a moment,
sir.
Let me finish, Mr. Rehman. Let me finish. Let me finish, Mr. Rehman. Let me finish. Have some patience. I heard you very patiently. Let me give you a reason why there is Hindu hate. Hindu faith, Hindu tradition, in the entire supermarket of faiths that exist in India is perhaps the only one that affords great deal of freedom, great deal of improvisation, great deal of liberty, great deal of tolerance to its adherents. And all those faiths who want straight-jacketed followers, threatened with punishment, severe reprisals from their divine, in terms of wrongdoing as perceived in that theology, are threatened today because the followers want to break free. They see what kind of freedoms we enjoy, our liberalism gives us, what kind of whatever we enjoy in our religion, whatever prerogatives
Sushil Pandit,
look at divine,
one does not clearly know the motives of these trolls and these posts that have been put online, apart from the fact that it is to spread Hindu hatred, anti-Hindu campaign on social media. But it is dangerous because now terror organizations like the ISIS are using Hindu-phobic propaganda to in fact commit more crimes, to in fact further their agenda of spreading terrorism. And that's why everybody should be concerned, because ultimately it's not just going to impact one community but the entire country and hurt the social fabric. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us.